I always go to Goli because if you look at their if you look at their image stack, it's always someone, at least one or two people, staring directly at you in the camera, smiling, almost where it feels uncomfortable, because when someone's looking, there's psychology behind it. When someone's looking directly at you, living their best life, you feel a part of it, right? Versus if they're turned away, it's almost like you're looking into it. I mean, we can go for longer time talking about this, and even into color psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Color psychology is massive on Amazon and e-commerce, and it's a real thing, right? I see too many brands that don't understand color psychology. It's really scary.
Welcome to Top of Search with Robyn and Abe, where we talk about e-commerce, Amazon, and more.
Welcome to the Top of Search podcast. I'm Robyn, and this is Abe. And today we've got John Aspinall. So if you are in the Amazon space, especially LinkedIn, and you've been looking at how to optimize your listings, you must be under a rock if you have not heard from him, if you've not seen his posts. Not only does he work for PickFu, but he's got this really great mindset when it comes to really understanding your customers and your data set. John, did you want to talk a little bit more about your background and kind of how you ended up where you are today?
Yes. Brand evangelist sounds more religious than it is. I've been in the space roughly 15 plus years. Started out slinging OtterBox accessories in a back of a T-Mobile store in Tribeca of Manhattan. Worked my way up relative, to then working for e-commerce managers for brands, selling 3P, selling 1P, then worked for brands directly. Then worked in the daily deal space when that was a big boom back in like 2014 and 15. They got acquired. Then I went to go work for the Department of Corrections here in New York City as a corrections officer for 5 years on Rikers Island. And COVID hit, and a good friend of mine, Iram, who's at Canopy Management, was my boss at the daily deal site and said, "Hey, do you want to come work from home and not work in jail anymore and be back in e-commerce?" And I was like, yeah. Like yesterday, let's do it. So then I went to go work at Canopy in a full service agency. From Canopy, went to my Amazon guy for a handful of years. And then I was like, all right, I'm done with agency stuff. I want to go be Switzerland. I want to go be everyone's friend, and I could talk to anyone and everyone. And, you know, during my time at MAG, really focused in on merchandising, hero image optimization. I really wanted to show people how you can make more without spending more. What I want to show you through my posts, my videos, my tips, my tricks is you can just take something as simple as Canva, change one or two things, add this, remove this, run it in PickFu for confirmation, and make more money. And that resonated with a lot of folks where it's like, hey, I can do this. And even if my conversion rate stays the same, if my click-through rate goes up, that's more money. And it's just math, right? So that's where I am today at the gold standard of A/B testing. And I kind of say A/B testing, but it's really consumer research, right? So it's not the traditional of what Amazon's MYE is of A/B testing, where it's like, okay, we'll put this image up and this image up. It's more of that. So with PickFu, we're able to do image versus image, stack versus stack, link versus link, like PDP, whole PDP versus whole PDP.
You know, it's funny. I spoke at SMX London in October. I'm speaking at SMX Munich. And one of your LinkedIn posts is like 2 of my slides because, you know, in the broader digital market space, they're used to having like Hotjar and Microsoft Clarity and being able to test those things. And it really frustrates them on Amazon. They're not able to do that. And one of the things that I talked about was that this is one way to test. And also, you know, when they're testing for their website, they're testing like, is the page layout wrong? I think one thing that makes unique about Amazon testing is we've got so much structured data. We get really aggressive at testing things that are what would be considered more micro changes than maybe like a traditional CRO firm that's doing websites.
And it's interesting too, because when you say Amazon testing, like on Amazon, like an MYE, you know, I always tell people that they ask me, can I replace this with an MYE? I'm like, no, don't think of it as replacing. Think of it as like complementary, right? Where it's like, okay, before I roll with the MYE, I want to have the best possible version of it. Because in reality, if you didn't do an MYE, you're still ahead of the game with just doing a PickFu. Because an MYE, I think, and everyone says different numbers. I think you're going to have to take like 6 to 10 weeks for it to actual results to come back. At the very minimum, I think 4. And who has the time? Who has the time for one minor change to wait that long? And if you are going to wait that long, wouldn't you want to wait for better results versus not? And then also you're kind of gambling with your own money with that, where it's like, okay, they clicked on this one, they didn't click on this one.
I think there's a time and a place for manager experiments, but I think like, especially if you've got like a legal team involved and you want to like test things before you get legal involved, or like we had a board game company, I was telling Gabe about this, that really wanted to take the kids out of the secondary images of their board game because they thought it was making people think it was a kid's game. And I was like, I don't know if now's the best time to do that. And so we tested on PickFu, and it hurt conversion significantly when we did it. So it gave us a chance to test something before having it impact sales and ranking and all of those things.
You're saying removing the kids was hurting it? Yeah, I mean, that's like, there's a lot of things, like for me doing this for a while, that's, I almost tell people I don't have to PickFu it. Like I just know certain best practice, but you still want to, like, you still say that. But like, if it's your main hero image and it's a consumable, for example, and you're not showing a value prop, where it's made, the flavor profile, the actual product itself, you're losing. You're losing to China Direct. You're losing to brands that focus on this kind of stuff. And there's no point. But I find a lot of like top level tier 1 brands, they don't do merchandising because it goes against their brand guidelines. And they're going to say, I can't do that because my creative director says it goes against brand guidelines. And that's where the tough conversation comes, where it's like, your website, your brick and mortar retail presence is one thing, but on Amazon, it's a marketplace. I think people forget that Amazon's a marketplace. They often think it's just a website. It's a marketplace. So when I search, skin lotion, you're going to get hit with everyone under the sun, right? So if you're a mom and pop skin lotion that's just up and coming, you can't look at Jergens and say, I'm doing it just like Jergens does. You're not Jergens. You have to go above and beyond in order to capture that click.
I think that a lot of times, I'm sure that you find this too, the brands think that they know their customers, but they're basing it off assumptions. So kind of like talking about like the value of really testing those things and some of the data behind that, if that's good with you.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I have calls all the time with agencies, brand owners, sellers, some aggregators still. And when it's a brand, they know their ICP and their avatar. Or
what's
at least
what's an ICP?
So
ideal client profile.
Yeah, basically. So people say intended, or ideal.
Yeah.
Ideal client profile. So I interchange ICP with avatar, and not those crazy blue guys that are running around.
I use avatar also, but not everybody knows what an ICP is. That's why I stuck my nose in there. Anyway,
Yeah.
Big companies typically know their ICPs, and I guess by extension, smaller ones don't.
Yeah, so it's funny because big ones think they do and smaller ones think they do. And then the real culprit is inventors. They think they know everything. If you get on the horn with someone that invented a widget or a product, they think they know this is exactly who it's for. But when you run something like PickFu and you can do different targeting, you can do random audience, which is anyone in the 18 million people plus network, or a targeted audience where you're drilling down to that ICP or avatar to confirm it, right? So I tell people, oh, who's your ICP and avatar? Oh, it's women in their 30s that have kids. Okay, cool. Let's run a PickFu on your product. Put your link in there. Don't do any other links, any other competition. Just run this one. Do a non-targeted random audience, right? And then harvest the data of who said they liked it and who said they didn't like it. And what they find sometimes is, we had no idea that men in their 20s really resonate with this product. Well, more so than women. And that helps them better position their creatives, better position their PDPs. Because if you think it's just women in their 30s that have kids, you target that specifically on your PDP and your creative, and if I come on there, it's not going to resonate with me. I'm not going to want to buy. But now if you have the data behind it, and then you're running a targeted audience where you're putting it in front of specifically women in their 30s with kids. Okay, you said that was your ICP and avatar, but they're saying themselves, no, I don't like it. So it's really a gut check.
Like we had a birdhouse company that was assuming that grandparents were building it with grandkids. And that was true for everything except for the deluxe. When we added the kids into the deluxe images, conversion rate tanked because the deluxe version adults were buying to do themselves. So it was crafters. So, even if you do know your customer and you've tested it really well at your primary product, as you get into those extensions, sometimes you get alternate uses you weren't aware of.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like Lego. Like, look at Legos. They go all the way from Duplos for like little kids to the most intricate productions ever that have 4,000 pieces, right? And if they were to advertise that and put the avatar of a 6-year-old, it's not going to resonate because it's not for them. A $500 Lego kit of a Death Star or whatever it is, right? It's for people like us that have disposable income that want to put some cool stuff behind us in videos, Like Santa brought my son a Lego Mustang kit, right? Oh, I gotta have this. He's 9. He does not follow instructions. Santa might as well have just brought him random Legos to stick together because it's not for him, right? Even though it's in his range, it's really not. It's really for like the 13 and up or the hobbyist and stuff like that. So 1,000% that makes sense.
Yeah, and even with like the Lego line, like the botanical customer, even within the adults, but the botanical customer is different than the architect customer. Like they're all different subset avatars.
Wait, hey, before you say something, because I know you're going to say something, Robyn, about the botanical thing.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that Lego reuses pieces from different sets that have no correlation to the flowers at all? Abe, do you know about this?
No, tell me about this.
So like, for example, I saw videos online where if it's a flower petal for like a rose, right, in their rose Lego set, that flower petal comes from a dragon set that Lego produced of a dragon wing.
So this is like a trash flower.
Well, that's their hook, right? Their hook is like, I think it's like eco-sustainability, that they have these pieces already, and that's part of the floral and things like that. And, greener you, greener me.
Have you ever heard of Brick Mania?
No, but I know there's Lego maniacs out there that literally go to stores, buy kits just to break them apart to sell individual pieces on the internet, and God bless them because I have no patience for that.
So this place has like custom blueprints. So like my son made like World War II tanks and airplanes and stuff that Lego doesn't make because they don't make war stuff. And so like you harvest all the pieces from your existing sets and buy the missing pieces. And like some of them he sold for like $400 or $500 on eBay.
Lego's a big deal. And it's going back to Amazon. I know that's a very hot topic for a lot of Amazon, people, where I think someone posted something that Lego is losing market share because they're not, I don't know if they're not 1P or they're not gating as hard as they should be, because Legos is like, I give a lot of credit to people that are in wholesale, resale, flipping. That is a tough business. That's where a lot of people get their footwork, the groundwork, the blueprints for getting into Amazon. But that is rough. Like back when I got started doing the otter boxes and cell phone accessories out of a store, when we were up against, 30 people for the buy box, like as a private label seller in a brand, that means nothing to you. Maybe it does if a hijacker comes on, but when you're reselling and you lose that buy box by a penny, back when there were penny repricers, to just at nighttime drop by a penny, or what they would do is they would do these tactics. Abe, maybe you know about this. They would do these tactics where they would raise the price. If you had a repricer, your repricer would lower the price and it would keep lowering the price. And then they would buy your inventory during the night at a lowered price because they knew that you had a repricer that kept auto going under. And if you didn't have a floor, or if the floor was too low, they would just buy your inventory.
Oh yeah, I have stories. I was selling when one of the repricers had a legendary error in which all of our inventory was priced at a penny. So
Eagle?
It was it actually was,
I remember that.
It was a known thing. I remember already having left the office on a Friday afternoon and my partner calls me up screaming, what in the world are we going to do about this issue? Now, thankfully, this issue happened in 2011, before FBA was what it is now, and 90% of our inventory was FBM, and we canceled every FBM order because we saw them coming in for a penny. But people who sold FBA in 2012 had their inventory cleaned out, and a lot of people were not able to get their issues resolved. It was one of the few times where Amazon would not ding a seller for canceling like thousands of orders.
Oh my God.
Because they knew it was a technical issue.
I remember doing this, and then we had to cancel orders because we were doing cell phone accessories. So one thing, anyone listening, you can't do this anyway, but even if you could, don't do this. So what we would do is we would sell micro USB cables and lightning cables in bulk. But because they were so light, we would send them USPS, no tracking, because you saved like $1. So we sent them out in the mail without tracking. And I remember very clearly that I forget what the ounce was, that we were putting it under by 1 ounce, but it was really over 1 ounce. I had no idea the post office had police came into the store, guns, badges, everything. And they said, we need to see your postage meters. We need to see your computers. And it was a whole big thing because the owner of that company said, I'm not paying, round it under the ounce so it doesn't go, I think it was like 13 ounces or 8 ounces, round it under so it doesn't require tracking or whatever that was. And they came and hit them with like a huge, that company went out of business like instantly. But at that company, no one understands, you guys probably do, but no one understands the days of Amazon taking down your account for an IP ban, meaning if we had workers in the office that did nefarious things on their computers at home and they came in and logged into the computer with their account in the office, the IP would get dinged and the whole account would get shut down. So I remember going down in Tribeca, getting brand new hotspots, brand new computers, setting up a brand new hotspot with a brand new computer, getting a checking account here, the owner getting 3 checking accounts, one in his wife's name.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Madness.
Yeah, there's 2 computers on opposite sides of the office, and each one is logged into a different seller account. And God help you if you log into the wrong account at the wrong computer.
We had sticky notes that said the email address here, the account here. Do not do this. We had people fired on the spot for logging into their Amazon account because they said, oh, but I don't even sell on Amazon. We don't care. Amazon doesn't care. We don't care. You're logging in too much. People that just getting started selling on Amazon now don't know that nightmare. They really don't know the nightmare. Like Amazon
it's replaced with different nightmares.
No.
If you take a snapshot of the posts in Amazon groups every year going back a decade, they will always lament how much easier it used to be and how difficult it is today. You look at a post from 2017, oh my God, it used to be so great. You don't know, it's impossible now. And 2025, you wish it was 2017. You wish.
And I don't think it's an Amazon thing. I think it's a saturation and competition thing.
Listen, I remember when I used to take phone calls to place orders. And yes, they were a different day also. But the trade-off is that it is possible now to have a much, much larger business than you could in 2017. It is possible to have a much, much larger business than you could in 2012. These days, you can hit $1 million almost by accident. It really is not a difficult number anymore at all for sellers. Back then, somebody's a 7-figure seller. They are a person of note.
Yeah.
These days, you're just in business. You're not. But you're almost not in business otherwise.
It depends on your business model, right? And I think that a lot of people go into. You have these gurus on I want to say not LinkedIn because it's not really filled with. It's filled with good gurus, right? Guys like Abe, good gurus. If you go on Instagram, they're the FBA knuckleheads, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like I made $10,000 a week doing this, flipping Nikes that I bought at Ross. Like no, that's unrealistic, right? So. Going into Amazon right now, if my wife, who doesn't know anything about e-commerce except spending my money, if she wanted to open up a business and said, okay, what am I going to do? You have a couple of options. You either have, I'm going to create my own brand or I'm going to resell somebody else's, right? So those are the two. Now, if you're going to create your own brand, which is the one to go with, what are you going to do? Are you going to sell a Me Too commoditized product and just slap your brand on it? Or are you going to solve a problem? The winners on Amazon in 2025, in my opinion, create products that solve a problem and or fix a good selling product with a better version of it. So if you have like Aaron from Zulays, the king of, milk frothers and stuff. I've never bought a milk frother. I don't even know. I just pour the coffee and drink it. But if that milk frother, for whatever reason, could be better with a higher capacity battery, or if it had problems with mounting, or if it had problems with washability, and you come out with something that's better than the best seller and you're putting that value prop out there, you're winning. But if you're just coming out with a Me Too product, it's not going to work.
And if you came from an Amazon native space, you might think that all brands are using this data-centric method to like build out their product extensions, where traditional non-Amazon native brands are not using kind of things like, keyword data and volume, picking products based off of their experience, and it feels a lot more nebulous. And I've had some brands that have tested out product extensions or color extensions, and they've saved thousands and thousands of dollars by realizing, hey, customers only want this men's underwear in black. They don't really want floral underwear, even though that's the gimmick that other people are using, our ICP doesn't do that. So I think it can save you a ton of money in that direction as well.
Well, do you guys have a Five Below? Do you know what Five Below is? The store?
Yeah.
I was there. You know what I call that? That's the bad decision warehouse. So, Five Below is the bad decision warehouse. So is Dollar Tree when you see branded items. And I love those. Whenever I go into them, I take photos and I put them on social media. And I tag the brand and I say, should have PickFu'd it. Because what you find in Five Below, you'll find Hasbro toys, you'll find Mattel, you'll find all top brand. But when you look at the nitty gritty of it, if you see a whole bunch of Hasbro Guardians of the Galaxy figures that are normally $20 in Target and Walmart, you realize when you step forward, it's all the same figure. And it's always that one obscure character that they didn't test with consumer research to see if people wanted that toy. And then it didn't do well in Target or Walmart, and they liquidated it for pennies on the dollar to Five Below just to move the inventory out. So that is why I call Five Below bad decision warehouse. You could walk in there and you can get a ton of name brand stuff. And a lot of folks will go there and try and flip things on Amazon. You could even, I for fun, I think like last year with my wife, I had the Amazon app up, the barcode scanner, and I scanned all the stuff, not listed, dirt cheap. It was probably cheaper to buy it on Amazon, people just liquidating it, than actually buying it. Like, you cannot sell this kind of stuff. And flavors is a big thing. So if you look at energy drinks, right, like Rockstar Energy is a big culprit of this. Because if you go into a Dollar Tree, nine times out of 10, you have a pallet of Rockstar Energy right in the middle. And it's the most obscure flavor. I think it was like Java Mango Mint Chip or some crazy flavor. And it's a bad decision that they have to liquidate. And this is painful for the brand CFOs, for the CMOs, for everyone that's involved. So if you just do better consumer research, you can avoid bad decision warehouse. And that's on the scale of enterprise, like top brands like Hasbro. Even these guys make bad decisions. And you'd be shocked at the people that I get on the phone with, on calls, on meetings, that are very large brands that don't do any testing. When they roll out a new color, this is the biggest culprit. This is my biggest go-to. I had to buy a scraper when I moved into our new house because there was paint on the floor, like a little kind of scraper thing like this. I went on Amazon, and the black one was the Hero one, and I think it was like $9.99. And they had other colors available too. The pink one was $4.99. I bought the pink one. I don't care how it looks. I just need something to scrape. But there's meaning behind that is because they didn't do consumer research to see if people actually cared about buying pink, and they had to lower their price to liquidate the inventory.
I think that sometimes it used to be that you had to do a focus group, and that was very onerous, and it felt like it's a big hurdle to overcome. But now there's so many ways to run informal focus groups with Facebook groups and email lists and tools like PickFu that you don't have to make those shot in the darks. And I feel like especially as so many brands are being squeezed in so many directions with their profitability right now, there's just a lot less margin for error. I think when that tide was high, we could throw things at the wall and hope that they worked. But I think we're entering in, there's argument on how long that era will be, but we're entering into an era where we need to make sure that we're making the best possible movements with each dollar that we are using to allocate towards inventory and launches.
Here's a fun hack that I haven't told anyone. So this is going to be first on your podcast. I will give you a first right now. So people don't realize this. If you have a large network, if you have a large email list of customers, whatever that brand, product, business looks like, if you have a large network that you can tap into, you can use PickFu for the low price of a goose egg. And what I mean by that is you can pull your own audience with all of the power of PickFu, with the click test, with an A/B, with all that kind of stuff. because PickFu literally does not charge you to use your own audience.
When people are going down to A/B test, I think that you and I both have seen some common mistakes that they make. Did you want to go through some of like the best practices for like A/B testing in general, whether or not they're using PickFu?
Yeah. So when you're not comparing yourself against like competition, I think that's a bad test. I think if you're $20 for X value prop and you're comparing against something that's $90 for a little bit less value prop or more, or vice versa, it's not a good comparison. It has to be apples to apples as best as possible. The other thing I'll say too with testing is if you're doing iterations, like, okay, I tested my image versus my competitor. They liked that my competitor had the fruit behind it, the product in front of it, the call out over here, where it was made. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw all of that in and I'm going to test it. You're testing too many things at once. So I think that you don't know what you don't know, right? So you don't know if people are resonating specifically because they see the orange and they're not looking at the made in the USA. So when you add one element at a time as you're iterating, you start to, unwrap the full picture of it. Stephen Pope is a big fan of this one image that I made. It's still on their website at MAG. It's cookie sheets, right? And it's cookie sheets before, and it's just 3 sheets of, cookie trays that say nothing on them. But after, I just put a label on it in Canva that said exactly what it is and some cookies next to it, right? I could have went further and I could have put packaging behind that. I could have put another call out, but by adding element at a time, you're able to see where it's resonating and then you can stop, right? Because sometimes too much is too much. I mean, I see hero images on Amazon where it's like supplements and water splashing behind it and fruit raining down. It just, a lot of it gets lost in the sauce. So I think you have to compare apples to apples. You have to add one element at a time. If you're comparing, cookie sheets with nothing on them to cookie sheets with a ton of stuff on them, of course, people are going to go with the ones that have a ton of stuff on them, but that's not giving you anything. How now test it against the one that's the competition. Now, is the one that you threw all that stuff on, is it still doing better than the competition? So, everyone talks about, test ABT, always be testing, right? Because if you think about it, the more you test, the more data you're getting. And with PickFu, it's actionable data. Because if I put in front of you a heat map that said more people clicked here than clicked here, and that's it, well, that's not telling you anything. That's just telling you that more people like that. But what PickFu does is it layers in the meaningful responses. So you're actually able to see why people are saying that, which I think is the big difference between just data and actionable data. When I worked at the Daily Deal site, and then they went out of business or were acquired, whatever, he went on to create Goli. And Goli is like the number 1 selling apple cider vinegar gummy. They're the ones that pioneered the apple cider vinegar gummy space. And I always go to Goli because if you look at their image stack, it's always someone, at least 1 or 2 people, staring directly at you in the camera, smiling, almost where it feels uncomfortable, because when someone's looking, there's psychology behind it. When someone's looking directly at you, living their best life, you feel a part of it, right? Versus if they're turned away, it's almost like you're looking into it. I mean, we could go for a longer time talking about this and even into color psychology. Mm-hmm. Color psychology is massive on Amazon and e-commerce, and it's a real thing, right? So if you're selling something calming and relaxing and you're using oranges and yellows, it doesn't yes. resonate, right? But the argument could be made, like when you're shopping melatonin, the whole SERP is filled with purple. How can I stand out? I need to do a different color. Great. You look at a color wheel. You look at what's a complementary color that's in that same mood. Maybe it's a lighter lilac, or maybe it's a softer tone of blue or something like that. But I see too many brands that don't understand color psychology. It's really scary.
So I'm friends with Sharon Lechter, and she co-wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. And at the time they were doing the book, all business books were kind of like blue, right? And so she purposely picked purple, even though, the color psychology is different, right? But, at the time it was all about shelf space. She picked purple because it would stand out on the shelf. Strategy worked really well for them. And now purple is kind of got this halo out into finance because of that thing. And I find that, people really underestimate the power of colors and the power of fonts, because the font can carry a completely different message.
Or even just readability. Readability, yes. On a SERP, product is this big. And if your font is super thin and ornate, you can't read it. So I don't care what your brand guidelines are. There's so many examples I see where people do post edits and call outs, but you can't read them. And if I can't read them, you might as well not have that there. There's no point in it being there because the readability is gone. So readability, sometimes you have to, as a brand, take your creative director, put them on the side and say, you do our website, you do everything else. Amazon, we really need to be, merchandised for the click. We need to be super clear. We need to be, one example, I know we're running over. One example is my wife buys it. I use it because she buys it. La Roche-Posay. It's like a beauty cleaner, face creams. They are the pioneers, in my opinion, of what I call the smear. So most of their products, it's a lotion, it's a serum, and then behind the bottle is a puddle or a smear of what the product looks like outside the bottle. And this is powerful because it's transparency, because I don't want to have to guess. Even though it's a clear bottle, I want to see if it's bubbly. I want to see if it's white. I want to see the texture. And so many brands have copied and replicated that because it works. Another example, I have so many examples. Another example is Korean skincare. Korean skincare is a very highly searched term in the skincare line, in the skincare genre, because Korean skincare is sought to be after as like top shelf, skincare. I talk to brands that are made in Korea, Korean-owned companies, and what they do is they launch in the US, they try and Americanize their labels and remove and redact everything that's showing Asian or Korean writing for fear of people not adopting it. When in the reality, and the PickFu data shows that it resonates with people when you show Korean writing and then in big, English, what it is, and then Korean flag, because, K-beauty, K-skincare, Korean skincare. So there's a time and a place of when to lean into it.
I see brands try to make product extensions and they end up creating products that compete with themselves. Mm-hmm. Like there's a time and a place for that, but you have to really make sure that you have the ad spend and that product is going to be successful enough to really hold both spots. So doing some sort of testing first can really make sure you're not losing the inventory money and the launch money that would be required to launch that product on the same.
I'll just add one note to that. The biggest business mistake I think I've ever seen was a company that made pee-pee pads for dogs, right? Going back to that. And on their listing, they said it's wee pads for dogs. They're in the pet category. And then in the stack and in the A+, also good for kids when they wet the bed, and also good for incontinence for adults in facilities and stuff like that, which is all true. It's the same product, right? But I don't want to put under grandma or under my 6-year-old the same thing that's on the dog, right? Yeah. So what that brand did is ran the data on it, and they were historically doing well in the pet category, but they ran the data and found that it resonates more, and they saw a lot more opportunity for incontinence and nursing homes. And do you know that brand took that one product, split it into 3 ASINs, and hyper-targeted the hell out of each one of them, and just said everything about dogs on this one, everything about kids and bedwetting on this one, and everything about incontinence and nursing homes and elderly on this one? Do you know that they made more money doing that with less ad spend because they were hyper-targeting who it was? Because sometimes you say too much. And when no one wants to put on the floor what they put under the kid, they put under the grandma. But the funny thing is, it was the exact same product. They did not have to redesign, reinvent anything. All they did was took their bulk from their facility, and instead of sending shipping all to one ASIN, they chopped it in 3. And then eventually, when the sales kind of parlayed, they saw they were sending more to the incontinence one and less to the bedwetting one, and so on and so forth. So that's a diamond in the rough where you find a product that can sit in multiple categories. It is worth the investment to get a new GS1, open up another ASIN, do all this work, because if it fits in that category, you have the breathing room to really tell the story to that avatar and ICP as opposed to cramming it all in one.
And you might say, well, how am I supposed to know if that's the case? If you're looking at your ads and you're seeing keywords that are converting at a high rate that are not your primary ICP, that's when you start digging into that. And then if you were planning to go into retail, now you know which shelving space and which category you really want to be pitching at. And you have the data to support that. Even if they come in and say, we want you because of X, you can actually say, we actually outsell that here. Gives you a lot more negotiating power when you're dealing with Bentonville and those kind of things.
And the funny thing too is certain categories have certain fees changes, right? So you might find that one category is more profitable because of different fees, different ads, different bids, and the bids might be lower in adult incontinence and higher, obviously, in pets. So you have a lot more to gain. So if you find a product like that, and I encourage people to, when you're thinking about that, think of, what else can it be used for, right? And that's a real hard one to, you don't find those very often, but if you can, right, that's money in the bank.
And it really allows you to have each listing for that different ICP, that different keyword profile, and really focus on ranking for those individual profiles. One thing to mention, though, is that also different categories have different compliance requirements. So you need to think about, before you move that in, do you have the compliance documentation and testing that's going to be required so you don't end up being hung up mid-launch on that?
Amazon thinks everything's a pesticide, folks. Everything's
Yes.
a pesticide. Everything's going to give you cancer. I know we keep saying last thing, but last thing I'll say is, like, when it comes to compliance, supplements is massive. And it wasn't always like that, but as of recently, the last year or two, it's gotten very strict with good reason, right? It's for your health. Children's toys, children's products. Yeah. Everyone thinks they could just buy something from China for a kid, a little dangly thing, a little chew thing, a teething thing. You couldn't pay me enough money to do that. The amount of risk and compliance and testing you have to do with that kind of stuff, it's just not worth it, in my opinion. The other thing is categories that Amazon has a stronghold over, books, media, news, because of Zappos acquisition years and years ago. A lot of these tactics we're talking about for your main image, you can't do those in those categories, right? So it's the Wild West for the hero image and supplements and, dog stuff. But in shoes, forget it. You can't even show the box that the shoes come in. You can't even show two shoes. You can't even show the shoe in an opposite direction. The shoe has to be one shoe at a certain angle in a certain direction. Otherwise, you cannot get it up. So, understand that too when you're getting into it, because you might think like, oh, I have the latest new sneaker and I can crush it with this and do all these tactics. Pump the brakes. You got to make sure you know what you're getting into.
So with the recent title update change, do you think that to follow up with that in the next 6 months to a year, they'll start to tighten the TOS on the primary images?
No.
I'm not sure how that will go. I'm interested to see how that will go. I think the manpower to monitor it would be more than they're willing to take on. But
do you know why I say no?
Why?
Because Amazon themselves break those rules. So
that's true. Yeah. And that, that's kind of the conversation that we have with brands, is like, this is against the rules. And
the funny thing is that terms of service is one thing. Yeah. Image guidelines is another.
Yeah. That most of the time it's going to be you need to fix this. And if they tell you need to fix it, you might need to fix it for all your listings.
It's an image suppression. It's a suppression that takes 2 minutes to fix, maybe less if you're quick with the keyboard, right? So it's risk reward, right? Do you play it safe, or do you push the limits in the proper categories that you can push the limits? And if you get dinged, what's the risk? An image suppression? Okay, so you just fix it and go back to the old one. But the reward is if it does work, you're getting more sales.
I really appreciate it. I know it took way more time than we anticipated today, so I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Hey, everyone, just a quick heads up. When we first said hi to John, we almost immediately started having a great conversation about all kinds of things that weren't Amazon. To keep things focused, we saved all of that great conversation as bonus material. If you want to hear us talking about iPhones and Comic-Con and Spider-Man and Marvel characters and more, just keep listening. He'll appreciate it.
No, when I go to Comic-Con, I like to really dress up to the nines as Tinkerbell. So no, I'm just kidding. No, when I go to Comic-Con, it's always Marvel themed. So it's always big Disney guy. I don't know if I have Disney stuff behind me yet. Big Disney guy. Big Disney gal.
Yes.
Well, were you Disney fan before Disney acquired Lucasfilm or no?
Yes, but not so much the movies, more the parks. And then as they've acquired Lucas and all of that, then it's expanded. I still have a hard time in my heart embracing The Simpsons as part of the Disney family. Like, they still feel like Fox,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Like have you ever been to D?
No, but I have clothes that are D23 and I've shopped at like D23 stores, but I've never been.
It's like Comic-Con for Disney nerds. So it's all the Disney, but I'm interested in who your favorite Marvel character is.
So my favorite Marvel character, well, I have two, right? So I have more of the human-y mutant, which is Captain America. I mean, that's tried and true. There's no one better than Captain America. But when it comes to mutant, where it's actually a little bit more Avengers and a little bit more X-Men, less Avengers, is Colossus. Are you familiar with Colossus?
So not as much as I am. I'm kind of more of a Marvel movie. I'm deeper into Star Wars. Yeah,
Colossus was in all the Deadpool movies. That's
true. Yes,
that's the big metal Russian guy.
Yeah.
He's like the Juggernaut knockoff, right? Or the Juggernaut.
No,
alternate.
I mean no. So Juggernaut. All right, we're going down the rabbit hole here. Juggernaut gets his powers from his helmet. If you remove Juggernaut's helmet, he is nothing. So there was a period of time.
Yeah, I just saw that. Which movie was that in where they had to get his helmet off his head?
That was in Deadpool.
Deadpool versus Wolverine. Yes.
No. It was the second. It was the second Deadpool.
No, it was Deadpool. Well, maybe, but I just watched Deadpool Wolverine. They had to get his helmet off to put it on that other character.
Yes, but he was okay. Yes. So because that was in the Void.
Yes,
they were in the Void. But it's funny, that was a different Juggernaut than the Juggernaut that was in the second Deadpool, where he saved the kid, because the Juggernaut became the kid's friend. And anyway, so the difference of Colossus and Juggernaut is Juggernaut's not really a mutant, right? He has his powers from his helmet. So in the comics, for a period of time, Wolverine put on that helmet, and it was like a Wolverine Juggernaut, which is crazy. But Colossus is a born mutant, where he can at will change his skin to adamantium, or just like complete impenetrable metal, which they don't do in the movies. They don't show him going from regular to metal. They just show him always, which is, I think, is a big miss.
There's always the opportunity for the next episode. I mean, depending on the director, they get more or less deep into the nuances and history of the characters.
I think the more that Disney buys of things, the better things are getting, right? I think it's only a matter of time. So right now, Disney, for Spider-Man, it's licensed out. I think Sony still has rights for Spider-Man movies. So that's why a Spider-Man movie is never really like a Marvel movie, or like whatever. I think it's just a matter of time before Disney buys Sony, to be honest with you.
Everybody is buying everybody. It's turning into like one or two large people in every space.
Oh, you don't like what's it called? Capitalism? You don't like monopolies? You're not a fan of those?
Oh boy. I don't, in and of itself, I don't have any issue with any company acquiring anyone. However, there does come a point where it is harmful to the market overall, and not necessarily because there are no more competitors. It's harmful because innovation stagnates when there's no competition. That's my issue more than anything else. So right now, I feel like Apple doesn't have any competition for iPhone. It's like iPhone and no individual phone competes with it at all, even if Android bulks up, So they have slowed down their innovation. There is not so much that they can do with it.
I disagree. I don't think they've slowed down their innovation. I think they've slowed down releasing the innovation. I think that Apple has 20 more patents, 20 more features that are spaced out, because if they drop them all on the next iPhone, then what?
Right. They have a decade-long roadmap for features, and some of them are not even fully developed yet, but they have an expectation for when the breakthrough will come. And that's the same for a lot of the technology companies. But they can get away with releasing incremental stuff because
it's Apple.
Nobody's beating up on them. Like right now, I'm literally considering upgrading my phone from an iPhone 13 to a 16. And I want to do it for the camera.
Hold on one second. You have an iPhone 13 in 2025?
Yeah.
Is it at least an iPhone Pro?
Yeah, of course. Listen, it's an iPhone Pro with the full memory. And the truth is, it works. There is no function it doesn't do. Nothing. Which is part of the issue, by the way. The one thing which is different, which is finally the point where I need to upgrade, is the camera. And I finally got to the point where, I
got the 16 Pro Max.
Okay, so this is an iPhone 13, and if you look at these two phones, no person looking at the phone can tell which phone is which.
You can't.
Right.
You can't.
So what does that say? Innovation is slowed down. Now, what's the issue? Is that the telephoto lens is not as high of a resolution as the other two lenses. So I'm annoyed that as soon as I get this phone, the iPhone 17 is going to come up with the upgraded telephoto lens.
This one has a telephoto lens.
It has a telephoto, but the first two lenses are 48 megapixels, the wide and standard. The other one is only 12 megapixels.
I mean, Abe, what are you taking pictures of? Parakeets from 5 miles away? Like, what do you need this for?
I mean, I was able to take pictures of sloths like way in trees.
It turns out, I was just in the mountains of Alabama, and I wanted to take a picture of a deer that was 140 yards away. And that was the time when I said, time to upgrade.
Perfect time.
So when I need it.
No, if you're taking pictures of deer in Alabama, all that, you have to invest in a DSLR, sir. Because if you're out there safari, National Geographic picture taking,
I spent 30 years selling DSLRs, and I know every model. I know every battery model. I know them all. And I can tell you that I have sold maybe tens of thousands of cameras to people that used it once and put it in their closet.
That's true.
And I also know that I would not be carrying it around. Realistically, if I would spend $2,400 fully kitted out Sony or Nikon camera with two lenses and a flash and a tripod and everything, you'll get used twice.
You'd be afraid to carry it around. You wouldn't carry it around as frequently as your phone. Obviously, it's right there.
I would get the right bag, which I also used to sell.
Here, hold up your Robyn. What iPhone do you have?
So I think I have a 15.
Okay, cool.
You can't even tell.
Here's how you're going to be able to tell. Just hold up your phone and make the motion like you're about to take a picture. Okay, perfect. You already lose. You already lose too. You ready? Click, 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 click.
Yeah, I know.
Click,
Okay.
click, click, click.
Yeah, mine doesn't do anything.
Because I have this button right here, which it's amazing, and I'll tell you why. With Apple Intelligence, I can do. I'll show you this. It's going to get a little wacky. Oh, by the way, my background is amazing. That's a rendition. Hold on. I said, I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and that's a mummy dad getting unwrapped. That's how I feel every single day with my children. So
lovely.
The great
thing is, they know that they are part of this picture?
That's none of their business. That's not. They don't have to worry about that. No.
Their internet is forever.
So you can go like this. You click it once, and it goes into a regular camera, right? But if you hold it down for 2 seconds, it goes into the AI camera, and then I can take a picture of anything and it can tell me, search it on the internet or tell me what it is. Hands down, best feature on the iPhone 16.
All right, I'm going to the Verizon store after this.
Oh, you have Verizon? That's a different story.
Well, how did different phones?
No, I don't. I dislike Verizon as a carrier. You want to talk about monopolies and not like monopolies? That's Verizon in itself.
I guess. I mean, listen, every large company's customer service is generally atrocious, but service is good. That's what I need. I need to be able to get service anywhere I'm at. And I had AT&T before this. I had Verizon. I switched to AT&T. AT&T, there were a lot of spots where I couldn't get service. Said goodbye as soon as I could.
Me, and when I upgraded to this, I upgraded I don't have my watch on me. It's charging, but I got the Ultra 2. And I watched a video on how...
Oh, you don't want to know which model of watch I have.
Is it analog? No. I watched a video on how if you have a top level Amazon, that's where my brain is, Apple Watch,
sort of why we're here, but yeah.
You can replace your iPhone and increase your productivity in your life. And I tried it for a week, and I'm telling you, it's one of the best investments I had. Because my iPhone will be sitting on my desk, sitting on my charger. I'll be walking around. And as I'm working, I'm not looking at my phone. I have my watch. My watch has the basic essentials. I can take a call. I can listen to a podcast. I can answer a message. I can do a reminder. I can set a timer. That's it. The doom scrolling, you don't have that. And that's one of the biggest productivity hacks that people can do is when you're hunkering down at your desk, because everyone works from home, take your iPhone, put it on a charger. The biggest hack I can say too, on top of that, is don't use a corded plug, use a dock, like a MagSafe dock, because it's less likely to be in your hands because you can't hold the dock in your hands and stuff like that. You're prone to holding it if there's a cable on it. So get a dock, keep it on MagSafe away from you, have your Ultra watch. You won't even look at your phone the entire day.
All right, we could end over here. We're good.
That's it. It was great. It was great having.
Perfect. Great having you, man. Always a pleasure.
So this has been another episode of the Top of Search podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed listening as much as we have recorded it. Thanks for listening. Just a little quick housekeeping note. Abe had to step out for a little bit during a portion of this interview. So if you see he's missing, that's
Thanks for listening to the Top of Search podcast. Have a burning question you would like answered or a topic you would like featured in a future episode? You can submit it at topoffsearchshow.com. If you love the episode, subscribe and leave a review. Each month, we'll be selecting one reviewer to win a one-on-one call with your choice of Abe or Robyn. Winners will be announced at the end of the first episode of every month.